Welcome everyone, John here with Contribim, and before we jump into this next tutorial, I want to make a quick announcement that we have some 2-day workshops coming up in Seattle, Los Angeles, and Dallas, Texas, where we're going to be exploring all about how to use ARCHICAD for estimating. So we're going to really dive into the steps for how you create different quantity reports, how you add cost to your model elements, and how you communicate all this information back and forth with other team members in an Excel file format. So I'm really excited about these workshops. Hopefully if you live in those areas that you'll be able to make it out and attend. I think it's going to be really interesting for those who haven't gotten much into the data analytics side of ARCHICAD, and yeah, I'm really excited. So make sure to check the link in the description below, and you'll find more information on our website. And yeah, hopefully you can make it out, and stay tuned for more dates coming soon. We plan to take this workshop around the country and really try to hit all the major markets to try to show everyone using ARCHICAD how they can estimate with their virtual projects. So enjoy this video today. It's going to be a quick one on how to use ARCHICAD for estimating. We'll be looking at concrete again and just really walking through the steps of how to create those reports and push information back and forth with Excel. So enjoy, and we will see you soon.
Welcome everyone, John here with Contribim, where we build tools, templates, and tutorials for ARCHICAD and our other favorite 3D applications. In today's tutorial, we're going to be talking about 5D estimating, and we're going to do this very quickly, or as quick as possible. We'll quickly run through an overview of the 5D estimating process from ARCHICAD to Excel. We'll talk about some of the tips of scheduling, how to run different reports that have the information in it that you need to produce an estimate. We'll talk about how to publish to Excel and refresh Excel with the data coming in from ARCHICAD. We'll talk a little bit about formulas, and we'll talk about data conditioning and some methods for quickly updating the cost in your project and pushing information back and forth with Excel. So let's run through the overview just really quickly. So quick look at this model here. So this is actually from episode 2 of the Contribim live stream, and if you want to see how we modeled this, you can go and check that out. But essentially here we have a model for about a 20-story building, and all we're looking at in this in today's tutorial is going to be just all about concrete. So we have several different items in here, from foundations to some special foundations for deep slabs and under the mat slab, under the tower portion. We got some shear walls in there, we got some stairs, we got some ramps. And as we go up, the columns actually change in profile. And so anyway, once we have this model in here and we've modeled it accordingly, all we have to do is, if we go to our reports here, and this is the base Contribim template here. So all we have to do is open up our schedule, and our schedule is essentially just a listing of all the components in our model that meet a certain criteria. So we'll take a look at that right now. So first off, just to notice how we have this currently organized is essentially our headlines by uniformat. But let's take a real quick look at our scheme settings here, and a lot of this will make sense. So so first off, our criteria. So right now I'm just searching for all different types in my model. I'm not isolating by design tool. And all I'm really looking for is what has a CSI code of that 033 cast in place concrete. So that's extracting everything out of my model that has that one individual property value, which is something that I've set up specific in this template. And then the only other thing here is I have it that it's not picking up any hot link sources. So if I did have a hot link source for a reference of different concrete components that I was using, it would be excluding those from this report. But if we go down here to our fields, so this is all the different criteria and parameters that we're pulling out of the model. And because that uniform level 3 is actually the first one in this list, that gives us the option of creating a headline around that. But we could also, just by real quickly reorganizing this, we could set our home story to be that headline. So we can flip this around and have a few different ways of organizing and viewing this information. But some of the key things that we have in here are, we have our hot link element ID. I'm going to actually shrink this down a little bit so we can see this as we go through it. So that's essentially just the element ID. We have a pricing package, which is really important if you want to be able to break out different packages, such as parking levels versus residential levels, or underground parking levels. So that's what a pricing package allows us to do. We have a type, which is really tells us the design tool that we were modeling with. So that's really important when it comes to extracting particular parameters for the different quantities. We have a unit cost here, which is essentially how we're summing up that scope of work into a single number. So each unit cost is associated with a specific units, whether it's cubic yards or square footage or linear footage, if you wanted to measure it that way. And then we start getting into our general quantities, such as our volumes. The quantity is actually the count, so you can see how many we have here in terms of the counts. But we have our net volumes, we have different heights, we have areas, surface areas, and then we go into the specific returns on specific tools, such as walls, beams, columns, slabs. And then we have actually a few additional parameters here if we want to get to a little bit more detailed level into the specific resources, whether it's formwork, material, equipment, labor, and so on. So okay, so if we hit this and hit OK, because we reorganized this schedule here for our cast in place concrete, and we actually switched our heading, we're actually now looking at it where we have our level 2, level 3, and so on as we go up into the building. And we can actually turn on this freeze schedule header, which actually makes it kind of nice to even as we're scrolling down through this project, we can still see the parameters that we are looking at in this schedule. So okay, so from here we can really grab any specific element and we can go back and link it up in either 2D or 3D. And so we now see all those elements selected there. All of these have been previously priced, and so we're all set up and ready to go. And so our next step here is actually going to our publisher, because we have this report generated and set up how we want it. And essentially I just go into my trade quantities. This reflects all my different reports coming out of this project template. And all we would have to do is we would just want to check to make sure that we are publishing to the correct folder. In this case, I'm actually publishing to my episode 2 reports folder. And from within there, it's actually creating its own folder structure, which is nice. That happens when we hit this create a real folder structure, that any folders that we have in our publisher will be created in the file path that we establish. And okay, so all I have to do is just go and publish. And it's going to run that report and publish it out to that specified folder. And then from there, what I would do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go into my folder structure for this particular example file. And under my reports here, I can go into my trade quantities, and I can actually see that file, you can see the last time I was working in here was almost 2 months to the day. But yeah, we can see that it was just published right now at 11:04, so we just published that. And so we don't have to do anything with this file at all. Actually, we can open it up if we want, just to check the contents of it. And that, essentially just mimics our project exactly how we had our schedule set up. And okay, and so what's nice about this estimate template now is, so this is one single Excel file that actually is pulling through all those different data sources. All I had to do was specify the folder that I was looking to pull from. And I can see right here that it's that same folder, that episode 2 where we were publishing, under the trade quantities CSI folder. And so if I go to my 033, all I would have to do, because we can see that this has not been refreshed, it's actually still based on the last time it was published, which was under uniformat here. So all I would have to do is just simply hit refresh, and it's going to reload that information. And this time we have our stories here instead of our uniformat. So this is a really nice workflow because it's as quick as that. We can just refresh, and we can see actually, if we zoom way out here, everything coming in here that's highlighted on the right is that's actually the entire data source that we have coming through. And so we can actually, if we delete this, we can see that everything on our left here, there's actually a little bit of cost left over, which is one thing that I always want to be very aware of. If it's an expanding and shrinking data set, then sometimes you got to really just make sure that that data is not larger than the source that you're bringing in, because sometimes if you expand your data set and then shrink it back up, you can have a few leftover items down below. So took care of that real quickly right there. And okay, so yeah, you can see that everything on the left here is these are just simple formulas. So if I start clicking through these, we can see that this is a value that's just going over, and it's either pulling a blank cell from our header or it's pulling the value for our header. If we go over one step further, we can see that we're pulling the left 5 values of this cell, which if we pan over here, we should be able to see where that one's coming from. And in this case, it's coming from actually the last parameter that we have in there. It's kind of, sometimes I like putting different types of informational tags at the very end that I don't necessarily need to see in the schedule when I'm working in ARCHICAD, but is just a nice indicator there for providing other information to my my summarized report. Our description, which is essentially just pulling right across from our element ID. Same thing with our unit cost. These are all just one-to-one, so our unit cost is pulling similarly to our units. So that's all one-to-one. And really the main formula that we have working here is our source quantity, which is really going into our data set here on the right. And actually, if I click up here, we can see that, this is all just if and statements. So it's a very simple way of going in, and just depending on what tool and what unit we're working with, it'll go and find the right value for us. So if we read through this real quickly, in this case, if F13, which is my unit, equals cubic yards, then it's going straight for the R13, which is our net volume. So the reason I have this first is because that's the most common. If I'm using cubic yards here, it's I'm going to get a net volume regardless of what tool it's working with. So I always have my most common operations up front in my formula. It just tends to work better that way. But if we keep going here, and then we go to if and F13 equals square footage and N13 equals a slab, then we're going and grabbing our T13, which is essentially, in this case, our area. So that works also for those slabs. If and square footage and stair, then it'll go and grab the square footage of, it's actually doing the, where is it, N13. So it's N13 equals stair, then T13. So again, that's going to my area. So that's actually just taking the square footage values of the stair. And if and square footage equals wall, then it's going to go to U13. If and square footage equals roof, then it's going to go to that same value, that U13, the surface area. So some of those vary just slightly. If and linear footage for beam, then it'll go find that, and so on and so on. So depending on what configuration and what design tools you're modeling with, and how well you can sum up your values into the schedule that you have available, you can just quickly manipulate your formula here. And what's nice about this is once you've set it up once for a single row, all you have to do is just take that formula, and we can just grab that and we can just pull it down all the way, and that formula will just kind of overwrite whatever's there, and it will make it really easy to simply just update your entire your worksheet. So of course, on top of this, we can add additional charts that can go in, and up here I kind of have it grayed out a little bit, but this is just kind of a default area where it's not being overridden at all from our data source down here. If I refresh that, so all these are up for grabs up here for just adding certain criteria. So in this case, I'm just going in and I gave myself 2 just manual criteria up here for my chart. And then this is just simply a sum if, where I'm going in and pulling if this range meets this criteria for A101 in this case. I actually don't need that last digit. I can just go and find that criteria. And then it provides my sum range. So it's just as simple as that to be able to go in and pull out certain values from the project. And yeah, so that's pretty much the whole workflow in a nutshell. So with that, if we go back into our estimate template here, and actually we can start doing a lot of different things with this. So we can actually go into our report here, and if we wanted to say send this information to a either an estimator or a subcontractor, what we could do is just go to our interoperability and go to export property values from schedule. And so what this will allow us to do is essentially just export to a specific folder. So I'm going to come back in here and go to the project I'm working on, and I'm going to go to my reports. And in this case, I'm actually just going to call this a data conditioning. And I'm going to open this up, and I'm just going to save this, and we'll open that. And Excel should open automatically. And okay, so now we have this set of data that came through. And what's interesting about this is actually the first time I just installed ARCHICAD 22 actually last night. So this is the first time bringing this in. And what's really interesting is I'm actually seeing that it's actually bringing in our additional header. It didn't do that before. So that is a new functionality. I'm actually also seeing that it's giving us notifications here of if this is an option set, which is actually really important, because if you start going in and changing the values here, say like building 1, and that's not part of your option set, you're going to get an error when you go to try to import this back in. So that's really a nice feature here. It just kind of tells you, gives you a little warning that don't change these values unless you know that what you're inputting there is part of your option set. So we can highlight those as kind of like a do not change. But these numbers, we can certainly change these very quickly. So say if I wanted to go with 325, I could simply just add this in, change these values really quickly. Maybe my deepen section is only 300 and my mat foundation is 300. Say it's only 275 for all my wall foundations here. I can take these and just copy these around and simply just overwrite this data. And because these are numbers, I can do that really easily without any repercussions. What's kind of interesting about these is we can change all these to number, and well, actually, so down here all these are not numbers. Right now they're actually formulated as text. So what we could actually do is, if we wanted to change these, we would just overwrite them. We can do that simple enough. If we want to start adding formulas and other stuff to this, then we could simply just, what we actually need to do is we kind of need a dummy cell here. So I'm just going to hit 0, and I just want to pick up that this particular value, and I'm just going to hit copy. And then one little trick I've found is if we want to go in here, we can just highlight all of these, and we can do a paste special. And if we add, then it's going to convert all these to numbers and retain those values. So, and then we can go in and we can give ourselves a few decimal points. So, okay, so with that, we could also start adding different formulas here. So say if I wanted to do a buildup of all these here, if I was going to be doing a lot of work in this, I would just go in and really kind of shrink these up. But yeah, if I wanted to go over here and really start adding up my material cost plus my, and build some assemblies over here, material, placing and finishing, I could build an assembly over here using all of these values. But in this case, I'm not actually going to do that. We're just going to, let's just save this and push this back in, and hopefully we have no issues there. So I'm going to save that, close it. We'll go back here to our schedule, and let's go to interoperability, classifications and properties, and import property values, and we'll just go to our file that we just resaved. And just to give you a quick recap, we had changed a lot of these unit costs here for our foundations, where we kind of get a little bit tighter on our numbers and cutting out a little bit of cost there. So we can open this, it's going to go and load the data from that file and give us a little preview. Loading property values. So it's taking a little longer than it typically does, which is kind of interesting, but this is a pretty large schedule with quite a few values there, so we'll let this continue. Okay, so that just finally loaded. Yeah, that's the longest it's ever taken for me, so I think there might be something up with either my formatting here or a change they made in version 22 that I'll have to explore a little bit further. But yeah, so right now it's giving us a preview of the information that's coming in. It actually really highlights here the columns that actually can be modified, because it's giving us in bold here which ones are property values and which ones aren't. So it's really only those first few that we had changed. It's actually giving us actually, the notice here that it's telling us is that it's just 200 rows is what it's previewing, because we had essentially more than that, I believe. So, okay, so let's go ahead and we'll just import this, and hopefully that doesn't take as long as loading it. Okay, yeah, that was pretty quick. Or appeared to be anyway. Okay. Property values were imported, and we can see those are now all the values that we had. And so all we would have to do at this point to go back and refresh is we would just publish this report again. And we're publishing it, not saving it as a data exchange. But we would go now to our estimate, and all we would do is just refresh that, and we can see that knocked off about 200,000 in price from what we had before. So yeah, so once you have the model built, it's really easy just to go in and manipulate the pricing and the contents here. So just to show you an example, maybe well, let's see, let's go to a flat view, or an axo view, and we can just look at this project from the side. And who knows, maybe we want to just take all of these columns up here, and maybe we will just select them all. And I'm actually going to change my arrows so that it's entirely around it, so we don't pick up those top columns. So I'm just going to select them all. We can see them right there. And maybe we will just shrink these down slightly. So maybe we'll go from 2x3s to 2x2.5. So that will adjust all those columns. And maybe we want to check our pricing on this. Maybe we want to adjust that from, I don't know, 1,000 to maybe 900 a cubic yard. Because maybe, it's just at that point you're getting good production, or the not as high of PSI on those, or depending on what the specific scope is, we can modify it quickly right here. And we can just go back in and try to shave off a little bit more cost off our project. So once we let this load, we will just republish, and we can go back and check it in Excel. So publish that real quick. And let's see how much we shave off this time. So let's just refresh. So, okay, so another 130,000 or so. Okay, so anyway, yeah, I think this is pretty much all I wanted to cover in this overview. If you have any questions about what I covered in this video, or any other questions similar to this, I'll certainly be doing other videos for all these different trades here. But I think concrete's a good one because it's very tangible to understand. It's typically really important to have model just for coordination and for understanding how that schedule is going to be built. But if you have any questions, then yeah, feel free to just shoot me an email, john@3dconstructor.com. All of these files that I'm showing, the templates and the example files here, are all available. If you join the network, you can get access to literally all of these things: Excel estimate templates, the project templates, the libraries, and everything else. So yeah, shoot me an email if you're interested in getting access to all of this. And yeah, with that, I'm going to sign off here. If you have any questions, just leave them down in the comment section below. And yeah, stay tuned for other videos coming your way just like this. So hope you enjoyed. I'll talk to you next time.